the warm up of the event, right? We will start by the first afternoon. We will explore some topics. There will be talks, there will be workshops, there will be a track on sustainability, there will be a lot of things, and tomorrow morning we attack by keynotes and talks. Yeah, John, you wanted to share something maybe?
Hi. Welcome everyone. Yeah, I think people are still starting to move in, but welcome back to API Days Singapore. We started here in 2019, and of course we've had to be online in the last few years, but we're really pleased to be back in person and back in the Arts House. So as Mehdi mentions, he's going to discuss about the API landscape, the API industry trends, and then we're going to you've probably seen the agenda. We have a sustainability track running here in the chamber, and workshops from our sponsors in the den, which is the blue room, which is just down on the right, and a little further down the hall in the play den. So I hope you've all had a good chance to take a look already at the program. We have a great afternoon ahead of us, and of course tomorrow a full day, starting with our keynotes at 9:30 tomorrow morning.
Good. Yeah, perfect. So, quick question: who was there at API Days Singapore last year? Few people. Okay, nice. Yeah, tomorrow morning we'll spend more time about like what is API Days, what is the conference series, you know, what are the other places where we organize events. But this first afternoon is really the warm up with content, with topics that are different than what you see, you will see tomorrow morning. So my name is Mehdi Medjaoui. I'm the founder and chairman of API Days conferences, and actually I'm following 1,200 API tools, 1,200 API companies in the landscape, and my goal here is to give you some insight about what's in this landscape, what are the key insights, what are the key ideas that you can get from what's happening on the market, and also give you some clues about like what's currently going on in the API mindset, as I say, and prepare you for the next 10 years. So I'm the founder of API Days conferences. You can follow me on Twitter at Medjaoui. Medjaoui, and my last 3 publications are a book, Continuous API Management, published by O'Reilly. It's the 2nd edition. My second publication is a report for the European Commission about APIs for government, why, how, and what, like trying to help the public sector to open APIs and publish APIs. And also a last report on GDPR data portability. When there is no API, how we can make data portable between 2 companies or 2 applications. Doesn't work, but at least we tried, right? So I saved you like 40 pages of report. So yes, so this is the landscape actually I manage. So I'm following these 1,200 companies. And if you go on APIlandscape.apicene.io, right? So I don't know if you see my screen. Yes. So actually this is what the landscape look like. It's an interactive landscape where actually you can browse. For example, you can go for a specific company. I don't know. I will go for what company I can go. I will go for a Kong, for example, which is one of the sponsors. And if you click, you can have you have a lot of information about what they're doing, the current part of the landscape where they're in. Right, and everything is gathered into different sections, like API identity management, API security, right? And here you can see a lot of infos about companies, every company of the landscape, estimated revenue, and so on and so forth, right? Partnership and everything. So yeah, I invite you to I will give you the link at the end. You can really browse the landscape, know what tools are available for what part of the API lifecycle management, from documentation, testing, monitoring, development, design, promotion, backend as a service, and stuff like that. But I will give you more insight about like what's going on the landscape. So the summary of this talk will give you like the 7 insights about this landscape, right? So just to tell you, we monitor, we check funding, we check founders, we check LinkedIn job posts, we check hires, We check partnership, we check blog posts, so we check really a lot of information about these 1,200 companies. And to give you these insights, so the first insight I will give is about how these companies are currently developing the API mindset, as we call it, and how they apply it to API management. The second thing I will share is how regulation are enforcing the new use case, the new API-driven use case. We will see regulation like banking, like insurance, like healthcare, and others. We will talk also about API security and privacy. Privacy regulations. It's changing the landscape a lot. We will talk about how APIs are a new business infrastructure and represent what's the new API stack, new standards, new API business models. And finally, we will talk about the no-code, low-code aspect, how we can onboard citizen developers, non-developers, to actually build application and consume APIs, right? So the API mindset for 2023, 2033. So quick question, who here has a technical background? Okay, who has a business background? Who doesn't know? No, I'm joking. So about the API mindset, I will try to make actually the synthesis, the sum up of the business and the technical background into 4 main elements. The first main idea I want to share with you is that an API is as much as exposing capabilities as much as hiding complexity. I will just ask you a question. When you go to a restaurant, a fancy restaurant or classy restaurant or whatever restaurant, we give you the menu, right? We give you a menu about what you can choose. But what's the menu about? The menu is a selection of actually what you can order. It's not all what the cook and what the kitchen can deliver. It's not the list of ingredients in the fridge. We don't expose you the back end. We just expose you the capabilities, right? We just expose you the experience we want you to live. We want you to interact with. So an API is the same thing. When you expose an API from a backend, from an application, whatever, of course you don't want to expose everything that's possible. You don't want to expose all the data that's available. You want to expose a selection of capabilities that you want the end users to actually apply. So this is, again, it's a great sentence. An API is as much as exposing capabilities but hiding complexity. So never expose complexity that should not be exposed, right? And always think in terms of consumption. What capability will be useful for the user? What do they want to do with the API, right? This is why I love this advertisement from Lego. Lego are just building bricks, right? They are just building bricks, no taste, no the same capabilities, but it's the user who makes the capability. It's the user who decides if it's a dinosaur, if it's a plane, if it's a boat. It's the same. So just an example. If you have a weather data API, you have a weather data, you expose it as an API. What are you selling, really? Are you really selling weather data? Yes, for people who want weather data, you will sell weather data. But imagine a small business who sells ice cream. If there is a good weather tomorrow, or if it's a bad weather tomorrow, it's different. I will staff more people, less people. I will do more stock, or I will have more storage, or I will open more. I will make some promotions. I will have more opening hours. So the same weather data, which is the same capability for someone who is asking maybe to take an umbrella, or for a business that makes decisions based on weather. So again, as much as exposing capabilities, as much as hiding complexity. But always think in terms of the consumer. It's the consumer who decides what will be done with the data. The second main idea I want to share with you is that open is really, really, really minor versus to be embedded. So have you heard the term about open banking, open finance? Yes, of course. But have you ever heard the term of embedded banking or embedded finance? Who has ever heard this term? Embedded finance, embedded banking. What's the difference? Being open is just to have an open API, available. But being embedded is really understand that you actually can embed into the experience of others. You can conquer the user experience. You can actually go and colonize user experiences where the users are, right? Let me show you an example. On the left here, this is a classic bank branch or insurance branch, right? You have the compliance and capital, capabilities, underwriting, financial services product, and then you distribute them to agent, brokers, to bank branches for your existing customer base, right? That's the classic model, right? In the embedded model, what the difference is that everything is a capability, right? So everything is a building brick that can be exposed to others. You open APIs to developers, right? To developers or neo aggregators or other platforms that can aggregate all these bricks. Then it will be consumed by fintechs or by any company possible. For example, Uber is consuming financial services, or Airbnb is consuming financial services, just to tell you that actually the banks are consumed by other type of companies. And then you reach new customers. This is the goal of being embedded, right? The goal of being embedded is to reach new customers. Imagine you are a big retail brand. You're a big retail brand, you have no financial capabilities, but you have like 5 million users, 5 million customers monthly. You could embed financial services, financial capabilities, and deliver them to your existing user base. So you would open a new line of business. So you would consume a bank as a service, you would consume an API from a bank to be able to deliver and create a new line of product. So then you understand the strategy. The goal is which capability will you embed to augment your offer, but for your user base. But there are some user base you will never be able to address yourself because they are too much owned by their own channels. So then it's time to embed, to have your capabilities embedded into that channels. So the main strategy actually with APIs is what? Is I have my existing user base. I will embed as much as I can to nurture, to augment my selling and my revenue on my existing user base. But some other company have user base I will never be able to conquer. So how do I have my capabilities embedded into theirs? So finally I can still make revenue and reach people I would have never been able to reach, right? So that's really the idea. And then it's a hard decision. It's like, how do I embed others to revitalize my core and enrich my offer? But for the one I cannot actually reach, how I can be embedded, as my new distribution channels, and when every decision maker involved in APIs will have to make this hard decision. Embed others or being embedded. This is the strategy. This is what we say in API space. In 2000, to be digital, you need a website. In 2010, you need a mobile app. But in 2020s, you need APIs to be in everybody else's website and everybody else's mobile application. So that's really the goal. The horizontal colonization is really the strategy. We often resume that in two main ideas. Is that organization will provide core competencies directly through APIs to others, but they will get core competencies to others from others via APIs to support their business. My core business, I will open it to others and colonize them, but I will use core competencies of others as my support, right? So that's really how it works. This is actually how works the supply chain industry, right? The car manufacturing industry. People focus on what they do the best, and they use what others do the best as support. The third main idea I want to share before diving into the landscape is that use is a lot more inferior than reuse. So you will see I'm a big fan of Legos. I will ask you a question. If you have to build something big like a Death Star, right? The Death Star, the Star Wars Death Star on Lego, would you prefer being on the left, I let you with bricks and you build it yourself? Or would you prefer being on the right with the model, the plans, the instructions? Of course, some people would prefer being free and have imagination, but most of them, at least, I would like the plan. I would like to know how it goes, right? This is what I call the reuse versus use, right? And you will see that actually it's a lot more difficult to make people reuse something without instruction. It's extremely hard. It's extremely hard. So people, but it's extremely more powerful. And this is what you do with APIs. With APIs, you give the capabilities, but people have to do it themselves. They have to imagine, they have to build the final user experience themselves. So it's a lot more powerful, because you can scale, but you need to invest a lot more in documentation, in what we call developer experience. You need to help developers to understand what they can be done with this building brick and figure it out themselves. So that's a lot more difficult, but it scales. Some companies have showed that it scales a lot. So imagine you have an API that delivers the capability, right? It has an intrinsic value. But imagine the cost to consume this API is really high, higher than the value of the API. The integration will never happen. So this is why you need to reduce the cost of integration, the cost of transaction, to be sure that when a developer discovers your APIs, or a fintech discover APIs, or a partner discover APIs, actually the value it sees is a lot superior than the cost to integrate it. So a final integration will finally happen, and you will become a platform. Because this is how you become a platform. You become a platform when people believe that the value you bring is superior than the sovereignty they lose, right? This is exactly how you become a platform. So be sure that the value you provide is not overcome by the cost and the effort to integrate. So that's what we call developer experience, right? Developer experience, or DX. And this is what has been with the supply chain industry, right? You know, at some point, every car manufacturer, what do? They focus on the pieces which has the more value, and for the ones that are easy to use or easy to consume, they go to third-party manufacturers, right? So every decision maker in the supply chain industry is doing the same decision. Is it easy to integrate? Is it available on the market? Is there enough competition? Okay, I buy. Is it hard to build? Is it really a piece of value? I build. So that's exactly how things are done, and it will be the same on the software in the API space. The last idea before we dive into the landscape, and I want to share, and again, if some people are waiting, there are some rooms available upstairs, just to let you know, or in front here. The fourth idea is that don't think what the best business model for APIs, don't think what are the best business model for APIs, but what are the best APIs for your business model. You will see many managers say, okay, I don't understand APIs, but if they bring money, okay, we can invest into that. But the thing is that sometimes monetizing directly APIs may not be the best strategy. Imagine you're a bank. You make money mostly from opening bank accounts, getting loans, mortgage, whatever. What if your APIs enable you to be the application, be the bank where everybody wants to open an account and everybody wants to get a mortgage from, versus trying to monetize just a fraud detection API or whatever. This is what we think about being a platform, being an ecosystem, being a marketplace, right? So this is this idea. So who do I embed, to augment my offer? And maybe at the end, okay, my APIs are free to consume for developers and fintechs, but actually it enrich my offer, and actually I do more signups. So at the end, I do the same business model, but differently, with new channels, with the new offer. So sometimes don't always think you should monetize APIs directly. Indirect monetization works also at scale. And it's proven by science. Actually, Marshall van Alstyne, who is the author of the book Platform Revolution, he demonstrated that in 2 articles. In the first article, he called Reverting the Firm with APIs. He demonstrated that companies who have a strong API strategy actually have, in average, over 10 years, 68% more revenues, 38% more profit, and that these companies can save up to 22% on operating costs. It takes companies who are on the same industry, with the same variables. It's a researcher from the MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And actually, he demonstrates that point. And when he compares companies who did not open APIs with the right strategy versus company who did open API with the right strategy, so for a company who did and did not, he put them on the same graph, and actually you can see the real shift, right? Again, company from the same sector, same industry, same size. And it's publicly traded companies, so it's not just startups, right? It's company where the data is available on the market. I love how the way he describes it. He said that this is a matrix of people and software, and internal versus external. So the internal people are the employees, right? The external people are the crowds. We talk about crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, the human aspect. My internal software is my algorithm, my programs, But what he showed that if I really want to scale with software, my external software that's available to the market are my APIs. And there are more experts, more companies, more innovators, more developers, more product managers outside my company than inside. So if I open my system, my capabilities to the market in self-service via APIs, I can potentially reach my maximum potential. So this is what he demonstrates, and this is how he gets his numbers. I often like to explain it with what I call the long tail strategy. So imagine on the left here, your traditional channels, my mobile channel, my web channel, but then you can see the long tail, my partner integration, CRM integration, ERP integration, e-commerce integration, whatever. You can see the huge long tail, right? But the problem is that if I have to invest in specific software, specific application for each part of the long tail, at some point I will reach a cost where the long tail is not big enough to justify that. But actually with APIs I transform that into self-service. So now the long tail can connect with me directly. Right? This is what Airbnb did, right? What did Airbnb did? The 20% of rooms available in the city were already taken by Hilton, by Sofitel, by stuff like that. Airbnb said, I will bet on the 80% of the rooms in a city. I will make people just sign up, add their rooms themselves, and I will get 80% of the available rooms in the city. And at the end, I will also win the 20%. So this is what they did. Uber did the same with available driver time and everything, right? So my point here is that maybe the long tail is actually bigger than your main channels. Okay, so that was for the 4 ideas. Let's go on the landscape right now. Let's go on the landscape. So the few clues I wanted to share with you. So you will see the landscape is divided into 5 parts. So when you will be able to browse it, the API lifecycle platforms. I'll just check the time. The API lifecycle platform, so you will see mainly API management solution, documentation, developer portals, all stuff like that. The second part is the backend big tools, like how I can build my capabilities, host them, being able to deliver them, my databases as a service and stuff like that, or data as a service. The third one is the API as a product, like my capabilities as a service, like payment APIs or Maps APIs or SMS APIs or background check APIs or all these capabilities that directly, which are a business process that is available directly by an interface. The fourth part is the integration platform as a service. You can imagine like a big SDK, like a coherent space to integrate many services in the same time. And the last one are what I call the vertical API abstractions or the aggregators. Right? The aggregators like 50 banks into one APIs or 50 shipping companies into one APIs, right? So if we dive into that, so there is a report you will have the link at the end that gives all the data. But that's over 10 years, it's a market that's worth $174 billion, right? So it's huge, it's huge. What I want to share with that is also it's a mature market. The solutions are mature. The sponsors you will see here have mature solutions that work at scale. So now you can really invest in any API strategy at scale. So the takeaways from the landscape, the first one is that API management is now a kind of a commodity, right? There are many players, many vendors over a long time. There have been a lot of acquisitions. So you can see actually the acquisitions in the last 10 years. So you can see all the top big software vendors have acquired startups who have acquired and acquired and acquired. So you can see here, Broadcom acquired CA Technology, who had acquired Layer 7, who had acquired RunScope. So it's really, the Russian puppets, right? But Google did the same with Apigee, IBM with StrongLoop and Red Hat and all other stuff like that. So you can see there's a lot of consolidation on the market. The counterpart to commoditization is that the open source aspect. Now there are many open source companies who are taking the bet of making open source API management solutions. So you can name them: Gravity, Kong, Nginx, now acquired by F5, Solo, 3Scale, Tyke, WSO2. These are open source solutions that actually can power your future API management solution because of commoditization. So now there is a new a variable into the system is that regulation. So in Europe, in Singapore, in Australia, there are many, many regulations obliging new industries to open APIs, like banking, healthcare. So this is an example of here of the banking map. But there is also healthcare, logistics, insurance. Also personal data, with GDPR, CCPA in California, the Singaporean law on data protection and stuff like that. So many, many regulations obliging to open APIs. Because of the regulation, actually we have now industry-specific solutions. When there is a regulation, all the vendors have now a dedicated solution for banking, for healthcare, for supply chain, for insurance. So you can see in the landscape, we have approximately 100 tools who have dedicated solutions to these industries. So I'll invite you to check here. And just an example, WSO2, one of the sponsors of the conference, just got $90 million of Goldman Sachs to develop industry-specific, like finance-specific API management solution. Just to give you a hint about like how things are going to really, really make specific solutions. If you're part of these industries, talk to API management vendors, they probably have a solution dedicated to your industry. The third trend is that API security is now a standalone market. So the API security is now a standalone market in the sense that new threats, because of COVID-19 remote aspect, the new threats are definitely emerging. Checking the time, yeah, 3 minutes.
Actually, Mehdi, I think the published time.
Oh, it's the time?
Yes, I think.
I thought it was 30 minutes.
I think our published time is for the next session to start at 1:50. So actually.
Okay, so I'll just finish one minute if you occur. So just last 3 trends. Security is now extremely important. Now you have dedicated product on security. So that's really the thing happening. $200 million have been spent last year on that. The fourth trend is the infrastructure aspect. Now many products are delivered directly via an API. Any business process as a service is delivered via an API on the market. And the last trend I wanted to share is really the no-code aspect. We lack 8 million developers in the next 5 years. So now APIs are now consumed directly internally from companies, inside companies to onboard citizen developers, so non-tech people, to be able to consume and mix and automate APIs together. So that was for all the trends. Yes, I hope you a great afternoon and a great day tomorrow for the event. And again, you can go on the Apidays website to check for the landscape, check for the report with all the information that powers the landscape. Thank you very much.